Welcome back to When Bad Things Happen to Good People, a podcast about censorship and the arts. My name's Todd Sullivan. Joining me as always is Peter Raman.
Hello.
And today we are discussing The Chocolate War by Robert Cormier.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I pronounced that right.
I would say Cormier.
Cormier.
Yeah.
Robert Cormier. That's probably correct. Thank you.
In French, it would just be Cormier. So
Apologies to Robert Cormier, unless it is Cormier.
lots of French people or that have French
They get
heritage,
anglicized.
and then they come up with weird pronunciations because they want to distance themselves from the French past.
Yeah.
So you
We refer to him as Robert Cormier.
Robert Cormier.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm incredibly stoked to be reading this book for a few reasons.
Me too.
The first is this has been on my list of things to read for a while on this podcast. I've been intentionally holding off on it because it is a banned book. It is fairly heavily banned historically and is sort of like that sort of junior high school, adolescent kind of novel that, and actually Robert Cormier is a fairly well-known author of these type of books.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure when I was in school, I read I Am the Cheese, which is another one of his novels. Can't
I've
remember
heard
a
of it.
single thing about it.
I don't think I read it though.
I don't know if I finished it. I might have been disappointed that it wasn't a book about a guy who becomes cheese.
Yeah, you're thinking Franz Kafka.
I was thinking a very
guy wakes up as cheese.
cheese, yes. But and now we've got a war over chocolate.
Yeah.
So he's obviously likes food that start with the letters C and H.
Yeah.
And there's apparently a sequel to this. And
I saw that there was like a Beyond the Chocolate War, but I didn't know if it was a kind of more of a discussion piece.
Oh,
or...
that's true. It could be that. I do think.
Yeah, I see a title here also by Robert Cormier, Beyond the Chocolate War. So, yeah, again, not sure if that's more of a treatise.
Further dispatches from the candy front lines.
That's right. Day 527 on the line.
Yeah,
on the front
exactly.
lines.
All right, so let's.
Our rations are running low. Okay.
As always, we're going to turn to Wikipedia for some information about this book.
Yeah.
The Chocolate War is a 1974 young adult novel by American writer Robert Cormier. It was adapted into a film in 1988. Although it received mixed reviews at the time of its publication, some reviewers have argued it is one of the best young adult novels of all time. Set at a fictional Catholic high school, the story depicts a secret student organization's manipulation of the student body, which descends into cruel and ugly mob mentality against a lone, non-conforming student. Because of the novel's language, the concept of a high school secret society using intimidation to enforce the cultural norms of the school and various characters' sexual ponderings, it has been embroiled in censorship controversies and appeared as third on the American Library Association's list of the top 100 banned challenged books in 2000 to 2009. A sequel...
Still going strong.
A sequel was published in 1985 called Beyond the Chocolate War, so I guess that confirms...
Yeah, definitely more sequel.
It was the 1974 School Library Journal Best Book of the Year, 1974 ALA Best Book for Young Adults, 1974 New York Times Notable Book of the Year.
But those were all voted by secret societies.
1979 Lewis Carroll Shelf Award. Took Lewis Carroll a little while to get caught up there. And even later, in 1991, Margaret A. Edwards Award.
Wow.
According to the American Library Association, The Chocolate War has frequently been banned and challenged in the United States over concerns about the book's sexual content, offensive language, religious viewpoint, and violence. The book landed on the list of the top 10 most banned and challenged books in 2001, third, 2002, third, 2004, first, 2005, fourth, 2006, 10th, 2007, second, and 2009, 10th.
Well, at least it got first ones.
As well as it was just once. As well as the top 100 books from 2000 to 2009. When the book reached the number one spot in 2004, it marked the first time in 5 years in which the Harry Potter series did not top the list.
Oh, man, that's actually a pretty good achievement then.
Yeah, knocking Harry Potter off of anything is a pretty solid achievement, especially for a book from 1974.
Wow. Go Cormier.
I don't know if I want to talk too much about the stuff that in it that might be considered, bannable offenses.
Yeah, we can just see how that plays out.
I do think, they talk about the sexual content, which we've encountered some of, the offensive language, which I don't know that we've encountered a lot of. I guess
we've encountered a little bit of the religious
stuff,
kind of stuff, but yeah, the language seems pretty tame so far.
If anything, I kind of feel like, and maybe this falls under their religious viewpoint argument, but I feel like there's people who don't like the acknowledgement that people in power, in this case teachers
who are of a religious sect as well,
might be pricks.
Yeah.
Might be just total assholes.
Well, yeah,
intentionally.
There's a section where a kid ponders or realizes that teachers are just humans after all,
and he's being blackmailed by one of them.
And it kind of destroys his view of teachers. So yeah, there could be some of that.
All right. So with all that said, let's get into the Chocolate War.
Yeah.
Chapter 1. These are very short chapters.
Very short chapters.
Usually between 3 and 5 pages.
I think there was only one chapter that I ever was like, oh, this is kind of, bordering on long. And it was probably only 10 pages.
I think. Yeah. Yeah. Most are, between 3 and 5, I think. And for me, makes it really easy to just sail through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you knock out a chapter in no time. You're like, well, fuck yeah, I could do another one.
Yeah, and it's easy to collect your thoughts around the chapter as a whole.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not gonna lie, I think I read 3/4 of this book this morning before the podcast.
Yeah. So I finished it off this morning.
Yeah,
as well. Yeah.
I've been very busy and very far behind on things, but I didn't have to postpone the podcast, which is points for me. All right, so chapter 1, we're introduced to, I think, kind of our protagonist.
I think there's 2, and this is 1.
Is it? Well, so...
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Protagonist, and then I think the other is
thinking
antagonist.
I'm thinking of chapter 2. Combining them because they're so short.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
So Jerry is in
Jerry
chapter
Renault,
1.
And this chapter is pretty much just an introduction to him.
Yeah.
He's trying out for football.
Yes.
And he's getting absolutely brutalized.
As I think you would expect when you find out that he's pretty much a little run.
He's a little run.
This is like, he's a freshman too. So, it's not like he's...
The coach is like, what are you even doing here?
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting kind of the language around this football experience.
Yeah.
How they, like the opening sentences, they murdered him.
Yeah.
And a grenade went off in his stomach, and just all these real visceral kind of terms for the pain that he's going through on the football field.
I really enjoyed that because I'm not a sports guy and I don't watch football and I don't care about football, but like this was the first time I actually felt like I had a sense of what it would be like to be playing.
Yeah.
And so
it brought me back to my high school football days.
You remember the grenades going off?
Well, I remember being like young and going to my first like camp, like training camp for football, and not having any idea what's going on and getting just laid out by a linebacker on my first play, and total like bell rung, like what, just
what's my name?
Yeah, this kind of brought me back a little bit to that. I think he's maybe faring a bit worse than I did, but it brought me back to those days, and like you really get the picture of what he's going through out there on the gridiron.
But I think the other picture you get, which I feel like will prove to be important for his character, is that he doesn't give up.
Yes, he's very determined.
He is determined as fuck.
As anyone who's taken some lumps or taken some hits and thought about just staying down, getting back up and having to take more of those hits, this is a lot of determination, a lot of internal strength that we're seeing from young Jerry Renault.
Absolutely. That's all I have for chapter 1, really.
Let me just see here. Well, so he does get back from the coach, show up tomorrow. So he's done well enough.
Well enough to be invited back. Yeah.
That he gets invited back because he's worried about not making the team.
Yeah.
He kind of walks back to school and then he throws up in the in the bathroom. Yeah. It's taken a bit of toll, but he's survived.
He's coming back the next day. In chapter 2, we meet Opie and Archie.
Yeah. This is who I thought was also in chapter 1. But so Archie and Obi were watching the practice.
Yes.
And kind of working on some stuff for the vigils.
Yeah, they're coming up with what they call assignments.
Yeah.
The vigils seems to be like this kind of underground group of students that are like they kind of run the school.
Yeah.
They're kind of like the bullies. You have to do what you're told or else they're going to make your life kind of a living hell.
We also kind of find out a little later in the book that they're really kind of the organization holding the school together.
In a sense.
In a sense, like maybe not through great methods.
Again, very unofficially, because, the school, the powers that be within the school, rarely, if ever, acknowledge their existence.
Well, they seem to purposefully ignore the existence of this group. There's just one sentence later in the book, and I didn't mark which chapter, but I think it's important to just talk about it now as we're introduced to the Vigils, is there's a sentence or maybe two about how the Vigils keeps order at the school as opposed to a lot of other, because this is a Catholic kind of preparatory day school, and they reference that a lot of other similar Catholic schools have fallen apart or have gotten so out of control that they closed down or shuttered.
Right.
So the fact that this organization exists, and we get I think some reasoning as to why the administration kind of looks the other way, because ultimately it seems to be, whether it's through fear or intimidation or whatever, the students are kept in line in a way that the administration wants to take advantage of. And so they're given almost carte blanche to operate in the school.
Right.
Again, we find that out later, but this is our introduction to the Vigils. So we have Archie and Obi. Archie is the kind of cunning mastermind.
He's technically sort of like the second in command of the Vigils,
but really
he's the one pulling the
thought
strings.
Leader.
Yeah. And Opie is sort of like an underling.
He's the secretary.
Is he the secretary?
He is the secretary.
Okay.
Yeah. So he is in charge of.
I guess that makes sense because he's making notes,
and he seems to have they refer to his notebook as more informed than the school records.
Right? Because it's got notes on all the students who they are,
on all the students. Yeah.
And we end up learning. We don't know much about what the assignments are at this point,
but that there's going to be 10 kids who have to do 10 assignments.
Yeah. And that Jerry's assignment is just called chocolates.
That's right.
That's all we know about it so far.
Yeah. But given the title of the book, it seems like it might be important.
It might be important. Yeah, exactly. Chapter 3.
Yeah. So back to Jerry.
Yeah.
He's waiting for the bus and has kind of I guess you could call kind of the inciting incident of the book in a sense.
With the hippies?
Yeah. So
I took a note though before that where he's in, I think, a grocery store, like a corner store, and he's like sneaking a look at the Playboy magazines.
Right. And
I had to take a note of that because it really reminded me of like my own adolescence.
Sneaking a look.
Yeah.
When the guy at the till is distracted.
Whether you're sneaking a look at a store or like a buddy's like, hey, check this out, what I found in the woods or whatever. And it was the mystery of the nude female form
and like not knowing what to do with it.
And the guilt associated with that and all of that stuff. It really spoke to me.
Yeah. And he spent his whole allowance, I think he said $1.25.
I think at one point he had spent
to buy one, and then the guilt of it after so long,
he ended up having to sneak it
down
out of
the storm drain.
Yeah. But first he had to like sneak it because he was tired of having to sneak it into the bathroom.
That's right.
And then sneak it back to his room.
That's right.
And then he was like, yeah, fine. But then even then he had to sneak it out of the house to throw it down the storm drain. Yeah. But then once he's finished with browsing the Playboy magazine, he's outside and he's waiting for the bus. And there's this group of hippies, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
He runs down a few different adjectives for them. No, that's not the word I meant. Not adjectives.
Few different nouns.
Yeah, exactly.
Appellations. But yeah, like we were talking a little bit before we started recording about like the setting of this. And for me, I picture some kind of smaller New England type town.
Yep.
And this scene in particular, I picture like kind of a large, kind of park or a more central kind of open, place in the town where, there's bus traffic and it's kind of the edge of a commercial area. And you've got maybe not a tent city per se as how we see them now, but definitely, like if you're thinking back to the 70s, like a free love type gathering of hippies just hanging out, kind of taking over a public space that they don't really have the right to, but they're not breaking any laws or anything explicitly. And so the cops are, just kind of letting it be. And he's just, every day seems to kind of stare at these guys while he's waiting for his bus. And one of these hippies comes up to him
and confronts him.
Why
are you staring at us?
Yeah.
He's like, well, no, I'm not staring at you.
Yeah. Even though he clearly is.
Yeah. And the guy gives him kind of a hard time. He's like, look at you, like this old man, and you're a middle-aged man at 14, just kind of doing what you're told.
Yeah, basically telling him like his life has no meaning.
Yeah.
Right? That he's already caught in the routine, and calls him a square boy.
Yeah, and it says, you're missing a lot of things.
Yeah.
Which I jotted down because I felt like that was going to be important later.
Well, and we do see Jerry ruminate on this.
Yeah,
both immediately
haunts him a little bit.
And later through the book. Yeah.
I don't know if it's in here that he gets thinking about his own parents, but that
I think that's later.
Yeah.
There's a later where he starts talking about his dad and
after his mom's death. Yeah. Okay, so then moving on to chapter 4.
Yeah.
We have our introduction, I think, to Brother Leon.
Yes. So Brother Leon is, I think, like the focal point of our view of the administration of Trinity.
And he's sort of like the second to
the assistant headmaster. But we hear the headmaster is ill.
Yeah.
So essentially Brother Leon is running the show.
Right.
And he is an interesting character.
And that also comes up in this chapter, this conversation, because this is Brother Leon having a chat with Archie.
Yes, so he's pulled Archie in, who we have learned is the major influence around the Vigils, the secret society that, kind of keeps the school together. And there's a little tete-a-tete here between, the administration and the leadership of the secret society.
Yeah, over the chocolates. And so we learn that Brother Leon has gotten a deal on some chocolates.
Yeah.
He's gotten 20,000 boxes of them.
This is presumably, because I think we hear later on, like the September heat, so this is presumably the start of the school year.
Yes.
So September, and he's got a deal on Mother's Day chocolate from May.
But he's like, we could just take the little ribbon off that says, Happy Mother's Day.
Exactly.
And there's 20,000 boxes of chocolates, which is twice what they normally sell.
And
he wants to sell them for $1 more.
Yeah.
And he's basically pitching this to Archie with the intention of trying to solicit the assistance of the Vigils.
That's right.
Even though
he's tiptoeing around.
He's tiptoeing around it because he doesn't, as a member of the faculty,
he can't acknowledge.
He doesn't want to acknowledge the actual existence of this thing, or that he would be requesting assistance
directly.
From it.
Yeah.
Which Archie kind of enjoys.
Yeah.
Feeling
he
a
likes
little bit
having
of
this
power.
kind of power dance. Yeah.
He does point out that the chocolates can be a very major source of revenue for the school.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, Archie says that the Vigils will help.
And he says it out loud.
He says it out
right
loud.
to Brother Leon.
And
he kind of revels in the moment of being able to say it out loud in the presence of the teacher of the administration.
Yeah. It's a power move again.
Yeah.
Chapter 5, we continue with Archie as he...
So we've got the first kind of secret meeting of the Vigils, or the first one we see of the Vigils, and they meet in this little
he's giving
room
an assignment
off the gym
to a kid named Goober, or the Goober.
The Goober, yeah.
Which is a high school name.
Yeah. The Goob.
The Goob. And so the assignment that he's given, and this is where this is the first time we actually kind of learn what an assignment is, and gives us kind of what a sense of what the assignments are. And the Goober is basically told to get a screwdriver, go into Brother Eugene's homeroom at night on this given day.
Yeah. When the janitor has the night off and
all the teachers are off
at a conference or something. Yeah.
And his assignment is to unscrew everything that can be unscrewed.
Well, loosen.
Right, loosen.
Because the screws have to stay in.
Yeah, so everything's got to stay in place.
But everything's ready to topple.
As soon as it gets like brushed against or whatever.
And I mean, I like this.
It's a fun prank.
This is a fun prank.
Sure.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen this before in high schools. But yeah, what a fun prank. But the Goob is a little worried about it.
Totally.
But yeah, he's initiated. And then we see the kind of the control mechanism that whoever started the Vigils has put together to help keep some reins on the assigner so that they don't go completely off the rails. So there's a mechanism called the black box, in which there are 5 white marbles and one black marble, and the assigner must pick from the box one marble. If he picks the black one, he has to do the assignment. So there's always this potential threat of whatever you come up with, you may have to do.
Yeah. So you never want to create an assignment that is so bad
that you
would not potentially do it if you happen to draw that marble.
Yeah. Which I thought is brilliant. And Archie kind of, he recognizes that it's brilliant, but he does not like it.
But I also feel like this black box coming up at this point in the book, it definitely means it's going to be something happens with it again. Yeah. And I do wonder whether or not Archie is going to have to find a way to cheat it.
Yeah.
That's my thought on the black box.
I mean, I don't know why he wouldn't always just carry a white marble around with
him.
But
should be easy enough.
Yeah. Because we do see that Archie is a bit of not like a bully per se in the traditional physical sense, but from a mental perspective.
Yeah.
He enjoys
pulling strings and
lording his power over people and making them suffer in again, not a physical way, but a very much a mental way.
Yeah. And I think that's mostly it for chapter 5.
Yeah. Oh, well, Archie picks the white marble.
He does. Yeah, he picks the white marble.
Which apparently he's done 3 years in a row without fail.
Yeah.
So he's on a kind of a hot streak. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd be worried about that luck running out though, right?
Exactly.
Like again, that's sort of why I think it's just going to hit the wall eventually. Now we have in chapter 6 Leon and brother Leon and a kid named Bailey.
George Bailey. Which is that a shout out to
that's
It's a Wonderful Life?
Right, yeah.
Wonder.
Maybe. I guess the movie would have been out and pretty well known by 1974.
Yeah.
And this whole chapter, I think, is really just an illustration of how Leon also likes to lord his power
and show his flair for the dramatic.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, and I don't know what subject he's the teacher of, but if he's teaching history, this is a lesson that, teachers have taught kind of in a similar way.
Yeah, right.
So Brother Leon accuses basically like the big honor roll kind of student, George Bailey, who never gets anything but A's.
Yeah, he accuses him of cheating. Saying
right?
basically like, you've got nothing but A's. So you're either
cheating. Are you perfect?
Or you're
Are you
perfect.
God? Are you saying you're God?
Because again, as a Catholic school, like only God is perfect.
That's right.
Are you saying you're God? Are you saying you're perfect? And it puts him in this position of, he wants to deny the cheating, but he doesn't want to acknowledge being perfect because obviously that's blasphemy.
Yeah. And he brags on him for a while. And then, the students are uncomfortable. We get a little internal kind of monologue from Jerry that he hates Brother Leon. And, not that he's necessarily working up the courage to say anything, but he's not enjoying this. He doesn't like it, which presumably the tension in the classroom, the other students are in the same boat. But then finally, someone does speak up and says, leave the kid alone.
Yeah.
Which kind of breaks the tension. And then Brother Leon goes on this thing about how this is kind of how, Nazi Germany worked. People knew that it was wrong, but didn't stand up to authority. Yeah. And so, to be fair, Brother Leon does teach a lesson here, but in very spirited fashion.
I don't think that was the intention at all.
Maybe not. But it certainly illustrates.
I think to me, it felt like a pivot that he did at the end there when the kid was like, "Oh, let
break
him alone."
The tension and
he had to pivot and be like, "See, I was doing a good thing by teaching you this, by humiliating and torturing this student."
Yeah. Well, and he hits him in the face.
Yeah,
which we don't know is an accident or
chalk
not.
Pointer thing. Yeah. All right, chapter 7.
Yeah.
Now we meet Emil.
Yes, another new character.
We get thrown new characters every couple of chapters.
That's right, yeah. Well, I mean, it's a big school. We know there's about 400 students.
Yeah.
We've only met a few of the faculty. And we're sure to meet a few more kids along the way.
And we learn a little bit about Emil, which is that he's kind of a bully himself. But he's not part of the vigils.
He's not part of the vigils, and he's also a different kind of bully than Archie. Like, Archie is far more kind of calculating, and whereas Emil just... He likes to feel the positive effects from bullying people in terms of getting things and having that standing, right? Like he's learned early in life that if he can victimize people, they're not going to stand up and they'll just kind of do what he wants.
Exactly. So when we meet him here, he's siphoning gas out of a car in broad daylight.
Yeah. From a senior, and he's like, "What's he going to do?
What's he going to do?" Right? Like, because if when the chapter's over, he's he's actually kind of disappointed that nobody confronted him about
That's
it.
right,
Because he wanted to be like, what are you going to do? Fuck you, kind of a thing.
Exactly. Now, we do find out in this chapter that Archie has some type of leverage over
something
Emil.
called the picture.
The picture, yeah. Which we'll find out later what that is,
but
if it exists or not.
Again, I got to say, like, Cormier is really good at, building this tension around the mysteries of these things, right? Like, what are the assignments? What is this picture?
Yeah.
There's just enough information in this to know that, like, it gives him some sort of leverage over Emil. Emil brings it up like, hey, you still got that picture? What's the guy got to do to get the picture? Kind of a thing. And that mystery is what compels you to turn those pages and like, when will I find out what's going on here? What's this all about?
Well, the other interesting thing that I like as well is that tension. There's these multiple lines of tension between characters, right? So, between a teacher and a student, between two students, between that student and another student, right? Like there's all these kind of very taut threads between all these characters as we start to kind of learn more about them, right?
This first half of the book feels very much about like building all of these complex relationships and complex tensions between all these various characters of varying status.
Yeah.
And then just, I think we're going to see that kind of explode in the second half.
Yeah.
When the war potentially begins.
That's right.
Chapter 8. Now we are back with Goober.
Yeah, so we've technically met Goober before.
When he got his assignment.
Mentioned, but now we're kind of getting more his internal monologue. So we learn he loves to run. Running's where he feels kind of calm and peaceful and can do everything. But now he's not able to run because now we are into the actual assignment. Yeah. So, yeah.
And I think it describes him as having like been at it for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And he's only managed to do like 2 rows of desks.
That's right. Yeah.
And like maybe a table.
He's kind of struggling.
He's struggling. He doesn't know if he's going to be able to finish it off.
He's very worried about not finishing and being kind of found there just asleep in the morning, like on the floor with his screwdriver and being embarrassed and a failure and, being maybe kicked out of the vigils or some other form of retribution.
Yep.
When all of a sudden,
a couple of masked kids show up.
Help around.
So we don't know who these are.
No, I mean, I feel like we can assume that one is going to be maybe not Archie, but someone high up
maybe
with
Obi.
individuals, maybe,
right?
Yeah, and then some other lackeys potentially, because there's a clear leader who comes in and talks with with the Goob about, hey, this assignment's very important. Yeah. We need to make sure that you get it done.
So, but again, that's why they brought backup, was because you can't necessarily trust the Goob to make sure it gets done.
Like he's one guy with one.
screwdriver. How much can you do?
Yeah. Some good planning. The vigils group seems to be pretty well organized here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then
and they finished the whole thing in 3 hours.
3 hours. Yeah. Chapter 9. Just tearing through
chapters. Chapter 9, this is where Jerry starts to talk about
his
the
family,
loss of his mother, how he views his father. So we learn a little bit about, how his father and him are distant. The last time they really shared any kind of connection was at his mother's funeral, which they didn't really leading up to the funeral, but at the funeral they hugged and cried together. And then since then, and we know it's been it was spring, so we're like half a year now, they've just been going through kind of the routine. They're not kind of talking much to each other or anything like that.
His dad frequently answers questions with fine.
Yeah, his favorite word is fine. Yep. How are things? Fine. Everything's fine.
Hey, we've got a tuna casserole that somebody dropped off.
Yeah.
You want that? Fine.
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
And, Jerry kind of muses that his dad's life has reached a point where there aren't really any highs anymore.
Or lows.
Yeah, it's just a drab gray that he wanders through, and he finds himself kind of wondering if that's what's going to be in store for him, if that's like what life is for most people, that you just sort of get old and muddle through life.
That's right.
And I think that's probably a question that most people ponder at some point.
Well, and I think at one point, doesn't he think like, my dad is already dead and just going through the motions or something.
I think
like
that's a different student that thinks that. There's another student who has a very similar kind of outlook on his parents.
Okay.
And I think he's the one that thinks that they're dead.
Tubbs then.
Is that? Yeah, maybe it's Tubbs.
Yeah. But this also brings Jerry back to thinking about his confrontation with the hippie, right? And being called square boy and that you're missing out. And so now, there's things in his life that he's he's really starting to kind of ponder on essentially more so than he ever has in his life, right? He's, his mother has passed away. He's now really examining these things in terms of what he wants potentially in life. And yeah, he seems to be having not a crisis per se, but he's torn up a little bit at the moment about this.
Chapter 10, we first sort of official time that Brother Leon is talking to the students about the chocolates.
Yes, this is, I have it here with very much pomp and ceremony. Brother Leon introduces the chocolate sale to the school. So there's a big, assembly or gathering, and there's a whole thing with all the students' names are on these big sheets that they stick up on the walls, and there's the pageantry of it and the dramatic nature of it.
Yeah.
Right. Is what, we've learned a little bit about Brother Leon in that first scene with George Bailey, but now we're seeing this on a grand scale of just how he likes to employ the dramatic and just kind of this over the top acting, about introducing the chocolate sale to the school, how it's a matter of, pride for the school, how do you, there's the sick headmaster, there's, all these things of like everyone needs to pitch in, and he's really, really laying it on thick to get everyone to participate in this chocolate sale.
And in the midst of this, Archie finds himself sort of briefly regretting pledging the Vigil's assistance to this.
Yeah.
But then he also thinks, well, it's not like I have to sell my own chocolates. That's going to be assignments. Yeah. And he's pondering whether, like, I guess I can give 10 students each 10 of my chocolates to sell. Sorry, 5 students, 10 of my chocolates to sell, rather than sticking someone with just 50 chocolates.
That's right. He's like, I don't want to saddle one kid. And then the last kind of thing in the chapter is him thinking just how, like, magnanimous he is.
Right.
For spreading the burden of the kids picking up his sales.
And at this point in the book, this is sort of what I thought might end up being Jerry's assignment, that he might end up being given like all 50 to sell for this guy.
We do get, when they're talking about assignments for Jerry, it's just the one word, chocolate. So we don't know. Obviously, with the Goob, it was his assignment was Brother Eugene's room, and that was it until we found out what that means, which was the whole screwdriver loosening thing. Yeah. So chocolates, we don't know at this point what that means. Like,
could be anything.
Is he going to have to sell a bunch? Is he going to have to eat a bunch in front of it? Or like, we don't know what it's going to be, right? But there's going to be something involving chocolates, and we know there's 20,000 boxes to go around.
Yep, which is a lot. In Chapter 11, we finally see the prank on Eugene's homeroom pay off as everyone goes in. And
this was kind of a neat scene.
Yep.
I liked the cascading kind of effects of this, of like, the one guy touches his chair and it explodes, and we just get this scene, and the way it's written is really, really neat in terms of how this kind of devolves in the room and how the chain reaction occurs.
This description of like little tiny silent bombs going off on these things as they just sort of collapse.
I really like how this scene was written out.
Yeah, no, it was really good.
It really presents a good image.
They talk about Eugene like trying to find some shelter behind his teacher's desk where all teachers can be safe, and as he gets there, it doesn't completely collapse, but it starts to, and it lands,
leans
and
over,
leans in this weird skewed way.
Yeah. And his chair explodes.
And like, of course, students are like collecting around the doors to see what's going on. Everyone's like having a good laugh about it. And Brother Leon's not
happy. No,
and
not happy.
Goes immediately to Archie.
Yeah,
it's like, I know you're responsible for this. I told you, no fucking shenanigans, none of this bullshit.
Yeah, like the chocolate sale is too important. How dare you do this?
Important. And I think, again, as much as Archie gets roughhoused a little bit, I think he's a little gleeful at being able to...
Well, there's two things here. So there's one spot where Archie doesn't appreciate being humiliated or embarrassed.
Sure, of course.
Right? Because that's his thing. He wants to be the one doing that. And so he didn't appreciate being embarrassed in front of everyone, but he quickly forgets that as he turns back to his prank and kind of revels in this legendary outcome.
And is able to like look back at and think like, well, screw Brother
Leon.
Yeah. Chapter 12, back to football.
Yeah. So this is like So the junior, like the freshman boys who are trying to make the football team.
Yeah.
This is a special kind of scrimmage where they're playing against some of like the star guys from the the varsity
including
squad. Including Carter. So Carter, we have met. He's the president.
He is the president of the Vigils
because he's this gigantic dude. Apparently, the president always needs to be a sports figure.
Yeah, he's like the muscle of
yeah. So I mean, he's the guy who represents a powerful figurehead. Even though Archie may technically pull all the strings, Carter is the face of it.
Yeah.
And he certainly seems to be, I mean, he's an all-star, all-American guard or tackle. He was also in the boxing club as well. So we find out he's quite the brute of a guy, and he is just destroying Jerry 7 plays in a row on this practice. But Jerry's, we know his determination, and he's thinking, you know what, he's going to keep going at it because he knows these guys were going to click, we're going to make it happen. And so, on that 8th play, he somehow, they run a little bit of a scramble on Carter. They get him all tangled up. And before he can get up and get to Jerry lobs a big, deep pass
to the Goob,
to the Goob.
Right? Yeah,
well, the Goob's the runner.
Yeah.
He connects with the Goob. The Goob takes it in for a score. Boom. The coach is happy because he was kind of furious about the performance of his guys, but the coach is happy.
Calls Jerry a son of a bitch, I think, which is like, that's when you know you've made it in the coach's
the
books.
Unofficial kind of description of the coach.
Carter even gives him a pat on the buttocks.
Yeah. Carter, who was happy with it. And so kind of the one thing here where Jerry experiences, like, I don't know if they say his first moment of bliss, but a true kind of moment of bliss.
Yeah.
Right. In this all going to plan and kind of, realizing his dream in a sense. And all goes pretty well.
Until he gets back to his locker where it's soured by, there's an envelope stuck on his locker that just says assignment.
Yes. Well, it's like a summons, I think, right? It says he's being summoned to the vigil. Ari assignment.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I thought it just said assignment, but it could have been a summoning as well.
It was something like, you're being summoned by the vigil.
In the same way that Goob was.
Yeah. Exactly.
So we can assume there was maybe that meeting. We don't see that meeting. And in fact, we don't really click back to Jerry again for a few chapters.
Yeah. So we know he's getting an assignment. We know it's going to be chocolates, but unlike the scene with Goob where we get the details.
Yeah, we don't really know.
We don't know. Yeah.
Chapter 13. We're with Goober.
Oh no, I guess we do see the assignment kind of take fruition right away here. Because this is Brother Leon's handing out the chocolates.
See, at this point, I'll talk about it when we get to it. But the first thing we encounter, though, is Goober. And Goober struggles with sort of the after effects of
his Room 19.
His Room 19. Because at first, word did eventually get around that he was the one behind it. And he was getting kind of like, good on you, man.
He was kind of basking in the glory. Yeah, he was kind of a hero in the school. Yeah.
But then the more it started to sort of spread, the more he was concerned about like the authorities, like the teachers, etc., finding out. And so now he's in this state of
afraid of seeing his, like a wanted picture on the billboard or on the.
So his moment of sort of pride and enjoying his work was very short. And now he's sort of petrified of what might happen. And as he's thinking about this in the classroom, the chocolates are being sort of handed out to everyone. And essentially...
Well, this is the Brother Leon's asking for a commitment. So you have to say yes or no of if you're going to sell the chocolates.
Because the way he sells it is that this is optional.
Yeah.
No one has to sell the chocolates. This is
if you don't,
optional.
Yeah.
But also, everyone is ultimately expected to.
Yes, because if you don't, you're not a true son of Trinity.
Yeah.
You're not looking out for the school, all the hyperbole around it.
Yeah. So he goes through the class name by name and, everyone says yes.
Well, Goob is kind of distracted, so it takes him a while to say yes, but
That's right. But still, yeah. It's still the same thing. They're going through everybody until they get to Jerry.
Yeah.
Who doesn't answer at first.
Well, he kind of whispers so quietly that people don't even quite hear it.
Yeah.
But it's a no.
And that's shocking. Because no one has ever done this before.
And especially to Brother Leon.
Yeah. And again, because we don't know what the assignment is yet. I don't know whether or not is this what
my first thought
is he refusing to
my
do?
first thought is this has something to do with the chocolate assignment.
Yes.
But yes, yeah, what the actual details are.
My assumption, because at this point in time, I had thought that Archie was going to force him to sell extra chocolates.
Mm-hmm.
My thought was that Jerry saying no here was a refusal to participate in the assignment. And
so that he wouldn't have to.
Yeah. And that would be sort of where things start to sort of crumble.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's not the case. We'll find out what is the case soon enough. But that again, that's pretty much the end of that chapter. Where
Brother Leon phrases it in some, very menacingly.
Yeah.
At the end of the chapter, saying like, yes, that's his choice, but I pity
anyone that's not a true child,
not a true son of Trinity, right? So, what that means for real repercussions, because we do know that the teachers may potentially affect your grades, right? They may give you a grade that isn't right. Like we already have a sense that the faculty is, takes some liberties, and Brother Leon potentially being the worst one here. So yeah, standing up to him may have more than just kind of dire consequences in the immediate term, right? This could affect his marks. Like there could be some serious repercussions here.
At the start of chapter 14, we're introduced to a character named John Sulky.
Yes.
It's another random character we meet. John Sulky he's
another kind of honor student type guy.
And he's really good at selling things.
Yes.
That he loves these moments of, raising money for the school.
Because he's never really done anything academically or sports, but he's won an award at school.
Yeah, he had the most sales the previous year.
For the raffle books or something like that, yeah.
And so, again, I don't know if this is just about sort of fleshing out the school or if we're going to learn more about this kid later.
Yeah, because it's only a couple pages that we spend on this.
Yeah, and it's mostly him. He's sitting in school and he's going through a list of people he plans to hit up for sales before it sort of expands into really just in the classroom again, as students are acknowledging whether, I'm not sure if they're being asked how many they've sold that week.
I think this is now we're getting into how many have been sold.
Yeah, well, because it sounded like one of two things. It was either how much they sold or how many more boxes they needed in order to sort of.
They're
but
giving
it's ultimately
a number.
the same number. Yeah. And so they're going through, and the numbers are kind of anywhere from 2 or 3 all the way up to, I think somebody says 10, and gets pointed out like yay, bravo, nice job. And then it gets around to Jerry again. And
he's
he
a
just
flat out
says,
no.
Yeah. And then we hit Tubbs Casper.
Yeah. So this character to me came out of nowhere because we get, as opposed to some of the other characters where we get a little bit of the internal monologue, this went on for quite some time about Tubbs's, not only his selling tactics, but his home life, his girlfriend. Like we get a really good view of this character, more so than we have of any of the other kind of quote unquote side characters up to this point in the book.
And what I think is interesting, I think this part of this is about giving a wider picture of how some of the students, how they deal with selling the chocolates and how they interact with the money they receive. Because what Tubbs is trying to do, Tubbs has a girlfriend, which has him super excited because he's overweight.
Yes, he's
a bit
unfortunately
of a
fits his name to.
And she really, really wants this bracelet that's $18.95.
Yeah.
He's already calculated what the sales tax on it's going to be. He knows exactly how much money he needs. And essentially he's selling the chocolates so that he can scoop the money from the chocolate sales to buy her the bracelet this weekend and then somehow put the money back into the chocolate sales.
Yeah. He doesn't know how he's going to do that.
No.
But I mean, he's definitely espoused something here that I think we all learned in high school is that girlfriends are expensive.
Yes.
He's really struggling with this, because they're in love. Damn it,
But also, when you're walking down the hall and her arm is in yours and her boob slightly touches your hand,
that's right.
That's amazing.
That's amazing.
That's the balance, right?
But he's coming to terms. There's a point here where he comes to terms with just how expensive. He's like, yes, we could be together forever if it weren't for money. Right? There's definitely that yes, I have to get this money to be able to pursue this relationship. And we also learn a little bit about his parents, right? Who he doesn't really like hanging out with. They don't understand him. He doesn't get them.
No, actually, that's Paul.
Oh, is that Paul?
Yeah, Paul Consalvo.
Oh, okay. Well, all right.
Yeah, no, Tubbs is just into like boob touching.
Okay, I'm mixing
But
these two
there's
guys
also
up,
this is where we get like, there's references to him getting hard.
yes. Well, we've already had a few, I think,
There's
one or
subtle
two references to
masturbation.
masturbation. Yeah.
And then yeah, talking about like getting hard when the boob touched him, and how if he got the bracelet, he was pretty sure he'd be able to get under her sweater.
Yes.
Yeah. So those little hints of sort of sexuality, which again,
Right.
like this fucking teenagers, man, like this is
high school.
more than anything else in this book. That spoke to me as like, man, I so remember like the thought of like, oh my God, the light pressing of a boob on your arm.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that and like, there's nothing explicit about this, right? There's no
exactly.
real overtly, like, it's all just between the legs, or he felt himself, like there's nothing explicit at all.
No,
even in some of the other mentions, like, yeah, we know what he's saying, but from a very like explicit standpoint, there's nothing really overt here, right? So like some of the stuff about being banned for the sexual content, like, it's pretty tame.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've come to learn that like any acknowledgement of any sort of sexual desire in teens is just not kosher,
especially at a Catholic school.
Especially at a Catholic school. Wow, yeah.
We also meet another character here,
Paul Consalvo, who is also selling chocolates. I think he's doing a pretty bad job of it. I don't remember.
I don't know.
But I do have to note that like he does not really understand his parents. He looks at them and thinks that they're essentially already dead, but they don't know it. And so it's that same sort of thing. That
I conflated Paul or Tubbs and Paul. Maybe I missed that there's another character because I thought it was all the same. But yeah, I guess that's a different guy. But there's yet another character that we meet in this chapter.
Brian Cochran.
That's right.
Who is the treasurer of the chocolate sale.
That's right.
And his job is to sort of track the number of boxes sold against the amount of money coming in.
That's right.
And he is discovering that the dollars are short.
Which he expects.
Because, again, it's pretty well established that people are going to borrow from the chocolate money that they...
A little bit,
yeah.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
There's controversy here because he's noticing that Brother Leon is reporting inflated sales numbers to the populace. Yeah. So he doesn't know why. He wonders if he's trying to kind of rile up or get the sales going by inflating the numbers, but he knows that it's off. Brother Leon's purposely overstating, and sales are actually slower than they have been in previous years, even though they have more to sell.
Yeah. Which, I mean, with the doubled price, you kind of could see it coming. But it does make you wonder what Leon's plan is with those inflated numbers.
Yes.
And then at the end of the chapter, we get another one of those sort of
the roll call
for sales numbers. And Jerry is continuing to just say no.
Yeah. I mean, he's sticking with it.
He is sticking with it. Chapter 15, we're back with Emile, and we learn a little bit about the picture.
Yes.
This is such a funny story to me. And basically in this story, Archie...
He's just kind of like wandering around.
Wandering the halls, and he spots a camera.
Yeah, like an open locker, and there's a camera hanging there. And he's like, of course, he doesn't want to steal it, but he's like, of course I have to mess with this.
Yeah, like he points out that like, or in his thought, he's like, he didn't really steal it, because like he's not a thief.
Yeah.
He just wants to annoy this person, so he's going to like take it and like leave it somewhere else.
He wants to make them
have
to search around the school for it because he's going to go drop it somewhere else.
So as he's wandering around now with this camera, like he pops into the bathroom.
Yeah.
And
I guess this is a more, again, still pretty tame in terms of how it's written, but a more explicit scene of, masturbation. Yeah. So he runs into Emile in the bathroom.
Yeah, pushes open the bathroom door, and Emile's on the toilet, like, jerking off.
Yeah. And lo and behold, Archie has a camera.
And so as I read it, he basically just mimes taking the picture. He doesn't actually take it.
No.
There is no actual picture.
Yeah, we learned that Archie's leverage doesn't exist. And he's kind of a little worried about it.
But it's in the implication that it exists, right? Yes. And it's I don't know. I thought it was funny. And so
it's funny. The scene is funny for sure, but also I think there's an underlying implication here that Archie doesn't have real leverage over Emile.
That's true.
Emile is like a loose cannon. He's a complete wild card,
right?
In
And so,
a
like,
sense.
if they were to find out that the picture
Yes.
doesn't exist, who knows what would happen?
Yeah, this could be a potential major problem, minor problem. We don't know, but the leverage isn't real, even though Archie thinks it's still usable, and he's got Emil under his thumb, but we learn that it's not real. It doesn't actually exist.
This actually, the chapter actually plays out like, I don't know, in some like on the near the school, Emil is smoking a cigarette and is asking like, "Hey,"
he's trying to see like, "Hey,
how can I
what
get the
do?
picture back? What can I do to get the picture back?"
And Archie kind of implies that potentially, if he does something in the future for him, he may get the picture.
You always got to sort of tease that thing, otherwise, what's the point of having the leverage? But then basically Emil like butts out his cigarette, realizes he doesn't have any left. There's a kid coming by and is like, "Hey kid, go to the store and buy me cigarettes."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I'm going to be late for class if I do that."
He's like, "I don't care.
I don't care. Yeah. You know where to find me."
The kid goes off crying.
Yeah. And then, there's this notion of how there are, and this is Archie's observation, that there are victims and then there are people who are victimizers, and that both he and Emil were both very much.
They know exactly what category they're in.
They do the victimizing.
That's right.
Chapter 16.
Yes.
Is this another new character?
David Caroni
and Brother Leon are now discussing David's supposed failed grade.
That's right. So David is another kind of honor student type guy who mainly gets A's. And I think there's mention of like he scored so high on the entrance exam that he actually got a scholarship to Trinity.
$100 of,
well,
which I guess is maybe
1974. $100 would be pretty good amount off tuition, I would imagine, right?
And they've also sort of mentioned in the past that there were certain tests that were kind of hard to complete because they were worded in a way where
they're kind of gotcha type wording. Yeah.
And this is
Brother Leon
one of those tests.
Yeah. And Brother Leon, I think, and he makes them pass fail. Too.
Yes, exactly.
So it's a pass fail. Like there's no middle ground.
So here's this guy who's like doing like A student work and he gets a fail on his test. And Brother Leon calls him in to discuss
it. And it's just the two of them.
And I can't remember exactly how it plays out, but it's pretty clear that Brother Leon is using this fail as leverage, right?
Well, he's kind of dancing around.
He's like, teachers make mistakes.
Yeah, we're human too.
Maybe I missed something in your exam that I could go back and look at later.
And the student, David, is kind of like, wait, no. Am I reading this? Like kind of going through that process, and we find out he really admires teachers, or had up until this point. He maybe wanted to be a teacher, and now his worldview kind of collapses as he sees that, wait, my teacher's trying to blackmail me. Like they're just the same as any like villain in a movie or anything, and it really kind of destroys his admiration of teachers, of the administration, of adults in general. Like it just kind of collapses on him here. And he does kind of cave because he wants the correction to his grade. And he tells Brother Leon about the vigil's assignment
for Jerry,
which was he needs to refuse the chocolates
for 10 days.
Yeah. Which now we find out, we're nearing the next day.
Would be the 10th day.
Would be the 10th day. So it should.
We know that going into the next day, Jerry should take the chocolates that day. Right. So chapter 17, again, it's a pretty short chapter. It's the kind of assignments again, not the assignments, sorry, but the
roll call,
the roll call of chocolate sales. And once again, it goes through everybody, not everybody.
Well,
but
the mood has shifted. Right.
Yeah, because word has gotten around now at this point that people know kind of what the assignment was, because everybody was a little bit tense at Jerry constantly saying no, because this is like unheard of. No one's ever done this.
Exactly.
So it's kind of calmed down. Everyone
and Brother Leon's in a really good mood,
right? Yeah, because he's expecting. But Jerry, he's not ready. He says a no once again, and it's pretty shocking.
It's kind of more of a bombshell now because everyone
expected
knew
him to
the
finally
scoop.
say yes. Yeah. And now at chapter 18, we are back to Jerry for the first time in a few chapters. And the first thing is,
he doesn't even know why he said no.
Why did I do this? And it's him in bed at night. He's struggling to get to sleep and he can't shut his brain off because his brain is like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah. And he's playing he's got this interplay with himself.
Yeah.
Of like, what are you doing? I don't know. Like, and again, we come back to the hippie, right? And like this
You're missing a
examination
lot
of
of
his
things
life, right?
in the world.
Exactly. But yeah, he has a pretty sleepless night. He even tries to masturbate, and that's not working.
Right.
That doesn't work either.
It's a bad day.
Yeah.
Especially when you're 15, man.
Yeah. So yeah, then the next morning as we get into chapter 19, he's like, this must be what a hangover is like, because he's hasn't slept.
And I remember days like that where I didn't sleep the night before and went to school, and brutal.
Yeah, he hasn't studied, and he's all
that's right. Yeah,
queasy,
nauseous on the bus as he's trying to get caught up on his geography.
But kids are coming up to him like, hey, like you're a legend.
Yeah, you're cool, man.
Yeah.
Like, what the hell? What are you doing? And then Goober comes up and is like,
Goober's worried.
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
And Jerry basically says that he can't stop now. Like he's like, I'm committed. He's committed to it.
But he is very clear with Goober, like, this isn't the vigils anymore. This is me.
Yeah.
And I'm committed, which is, it's odd because we don't know, and he doesn't know either.
Yeah.
Why he's doing it.
But I think
but his determination, his kind of almost blind determination here, we see it kind of take over.
There's because of the reference to the hippies and the line, like, you're missing out on things.
Mm-hmm. And he doesn't want, he's trying to put distance between his parents' life or the adult life that he maybe sees, the routine, all that kind of stuff.
And it's like, what, because no one's ever done this before. What will happen if you do?
Yeah.
And there's that moment when he goes to his locker and he opens his locker, and we're told about this poster he has in his locker that everybody is sort of encouraged or, forced or whatever to put up a poster in the locker. And he put up this poster that was a picture of a man just walking across a beach.
Yeah. Solitary figure.
Yeah. But what the poster says is, "Do I dare disturb the universe?"
Yeah.
And it's a quote from
T.S. Eliot.
And I think that's the crux of what is going on here. He is daring to disrupt, admittedly, this very tiny microcosm of a universe. But
it's his universe, though.
It is. It's as big as his universe is. And I think we're going to find that it's it's going to explode into a pretty substantial disruption.
The repercussions of this one daring moment, yeah.
Because towards the end of this chapter, when we're back to that roll call of chocolates, it's pointed out that the numbers are shrinking. Mm-hmm. That we're not getting these.
We're not seeing 6, the 5s and 10s anymore. It's only
just
2s
1s and 2s,
and maybe a 3.
And there's this implication that Jerry's
started something.
Exactly. Yeah. He's maybe building a little rebellion of people who are tired of this and are tired of the bullshit that they get from the teachers and their own inability to be free of the power
to stand up to.
Yeah. And that's as far as we go.
Yeah.
Today.
Yes. Definitely kind of a cliffhanger in the sense of a good place to stop in the middle of this book and go like, what is going to happen?
There is a sense of like there's something bubbling under the surface that is going to.
I mean, the dominoes have really been set up now, and this is basically, we flicked the first one down here, and now we're not going to come back to you guys for a while on this, but it's definitely a very interesting scenario that we're ready to see.
But it's interesting too that, like, if I remember correctly, the numbers as far as like the fake numbers that Brother Leon is quoting versus the actual cash dollars they received, it's almost double.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I don't know if there is the headmaster above Brother Leon,
but he's sick.
We don't know how sick he is, right?
Well, he's in the hospital, but
people go to the hospital to get like
in those times.
Well, I guess that's.
But he's been out for a while.
I just feel like the fact that we never actually encounter the headmaster and we're only told about him by Brother Leon, there is the question of how honest is Brother Leon being about him, because I do wonder whether or not lying about those numbers is going to bite him in the ass. And it can only really bite him in the ass if there's something above him that he's promising these sales numbers to.
So even if the headmaster is incapacitated, I mean, they're brothers, so there's some religious sect within the Catholic Church, which would mean that they would have to answer to like a bishop or a deacon or something like that. So they're outside of the school system. There will be another kind of structure in terms of church hierarchy that exists. But
it feels odd that we haven't been introduced to who that might be.
I mean, just think back to your Simpsons, right? Principal Skinner had to deal with the superintendent at some point, right? So, the headmaster or a principal or whatever, there's always a higher power.
Always.
But yeah, so Leon is definitely putting himself.
God's going to come down and be like, what the fuck? Where are my chocolate sales?
But he's definitely putting himself in a tough position by overinflating these numbers.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Interesting where we stand.
Yeah.
So I know you normally ask me this. I'm going to ask you first.
Okay.
But what are your predictions for what we'll see in the back half of this book?
Yeah, boy. I definitely see the refusal to sell chocolates expanding.
Yeah.
And I see other students beginning to also stop.
Yeah.
I think maybe that might be some of why we were introduced to some of those side characters. I think we could see Tubbs just be like, hey, I sold my $18.95 worth of chocolates to buy that necklace or that bracelet. I'm done now, and I'm not giving you the money.
I feel like Tubbs may continue to sell, but not turn in any money.
Maybe could be that too.
I mean, he's got a habit to support.
He's got a girl.
He's got a boob on arm touch that he needs to spend a lot of cash on here.
Yeah, so I definitely see the sort of the revolution growing.
The title of the book, I think, for me, right, The Chocolate War. Like whether that's going to be a physical manifestation or, sides are drawn in the school, if, Jerry's coming up against the Vigils, but other students band together, there's definitely some type of major clash.
I think the Vigils are going to have to step up and try to push the refusing students into selling more chocolates, because the school can't officially. The school is like,
that's right,
it's entirely optional.
Yeah. So wink, wink. But yeah, I think that's where the war is going to come from, right? Is going to be the Vigils, pushing their agenda,
because they have officially agreed to assist the school with it.
And then the loose, or maybe they become more coherent group of students that are getting on board with standing up to authority.
And I'm going to go as far as to say, I think we might see Jerry martyred for his cause.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to go that dark.
All right. Yeah.
But
I mean, I definitely, and I had this thought.
Yeah.
Was that there's shades in this book that remind me a little bit of like Dead Poets Society.
Okay, sure.
And that was when I had the thought of like, could this go dark and see like a student die? My hope is not.
Yeah.
Right. But I definitely had that thought, more so because there was just some elements that I thought this is kind of Dead Poet Society-ish in terms of the secret society, not so much like the interaction with authority and with the teacher, but some of that secret society and like the questions about one's own life and that kind of stuff, right? But yeah, I hope not.
I don't want to say pretty certain, but I do think there's a pretty good chance that we might see someone die, if not Jerry, maybe Goob, maybe Tubbs, could be.
So this could have a real serious impact on the football team, is what you're saying.
It is, yeah. That is what I'm saying. And that's where the real tragedy is.
That's the real tragedy of this book. I mean, they had, I think, 5 losing seasons or something in a row. So,
and nobody even cares about boxing anymore.
Nobody cares about boxing anymore.
So football's all they have, guys. That's football and chocolate.
So this is a real tragedy potentially brewing here for the football team. But yeah, no, I definitely, I think I'm on board with you in the sense of definitely that clash between the Vigils and the other kind of student group, how that plays out. Again, we know Archie is very kind of focused on the mental, on the psychological kind of punishments or power, whereas characters like Carter and Emil are very kind of physical in their sense. So we may see a war on both fronts, both the psychological and the physical. Yeah,
and I do. Yeah, I think there may be. There's a reason that they talk about, the difference between like Carter and Archie as, Carter's essentially the leader, but Archie is really sort of the mastermind. And I feel like there could be a tension there if Archie decides like he doesn't want to listen to, maybe Carter makes a decision and Archie's like, no.
Yeah.
There could be a conflict there as well. Yeah. Like at this point, I think what's wild is that there is so many different potential directions for conflict to go.
Well, and we've also seen so many side characters that any one of them could have a major potential impact.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Do you think we're going to find any more side characters as we go on?
I think there'll probably be a few more, I would imagine, because you got a school of 400 people,
I feel like
right?
Normally in a novel, there should be a point where you can't add characters anymore. Like, you can't be like one chapter away from the end and just throw in a new character, really.
I mean,
you can do anything.
That's what,
right?
But that's what life is. Characters show up, right? I can see it happening. I mean, I would say probably not. We're not going to see 20 more, but I can see there being a few more students, especially if we think about drawing lines in the sand here between two groups.
Yeah,
that we may see. And again, we may not get as much backstory as we have, but I think we'll definitely hear some more names of students that are on one side or the other.
Yeah.
How big of an impact they have, probably minimal. I think, the characters that we've seen so far, especially where we've gotten some of the backstory and some of that internal monologue from them, they're going to have an impact on whatever's coming.
So I will say, so far, I'm really enjoying this.
Yeah.
Not just because it's a much easier read than the last two novels we did. It's just a really engrossing page turner of a book.
Yeah, it's got a tension to it, as we kind of talked about already, not just in terms of the characters, but just in terms of this. You picture this little New England town, this little kind of prep school or whatever kind of Trinity Catholic school. And, it's that thing where everything looks kind of idyllic on the surface, but deep down, I mean, people are just running at high tension in terms of how they deal with the administration, with other students, between seniors and juniors and freshmen, and it really brings you back into that world of high school and just how stressful in a sense.
Yeah,
and
I think the way the characters are written, the way the characters are characterized, is very easy to relate to
all of them
high school
in some
fears,
way or another. Yeah,
whether it's the boob on the arm or being brutalized in football or whatever. I think it's a very sort of honestly written book, which I think is really fantastic when it comes to adolescent or young adult literature. Is that sort of honesty? So
yeah, and I mean, from a violence perspective, we haven't really seen much yet. Certainly, like the football terms, in terms of how that's described. Sure, violent, but that's par for the course with football. From a sexual standpoint, we don't really get anything like overly explicit, right? Yeah. We definitely get mention on several times about masturbation, that kind of thing. And we get the the boob touch, hopefully you can go under the sweater right from Tubbs, but
yeah, it feels
nothing
very normal for high school at that point in time. No one's
nothing out toward.
We're not talking about anyone actually having sex. It's always just sort of the prospect or the desire for. Yeah. Which, I'm sorry, if you're 15 years old and not at least somewhat,
that's right,
constantly
something
thinking
wrong with you
sex.
there.
Yeah. So yeah,
I will say, and I don't think we touched on this, but in chapter 2, when we first meet Obi and Archie, there's one thing. So Obi's kind of going, I hate this Archie guy. He's so like manipulative or whatever, but I also admire him. And then one thing that Archie says that I think, if we're talking about the religious potential aspects of this book and why it might be banned, is Archie says something to the effect of, when you say Jesus, you're talking about your Lord and Savior. But when I say it, I'm just talking about a guy, who had a good PR team.
Right.
He's making this clarification of like, if you're religious and you use these terms, it means one thing. But for me, I don't believe. And therefore, when I say
and it's Anthony who didn't believe.
Obi. No, sorry, Archie.
Yeah,
sorry, Archie. Yeah, Archie is.
There's no Anthony. I meant Archie.
Yeah. Archie is the non-believer. Obi's the believer, and he's making this distinction of you use it this way, but for me, I don't believe it. It's just a guy. It's just whatever to me.
Yeah.
So like it has no real impact, right? Whereas for you, this is a much more serious thing because you believe in this, and I think there would definitely be some in the church that would take offense to that kind of phrasing of the religious experience.
Yeah, and now that you bring that up, it does make my thought of someone's martyrdom feel a little bit more inevitable. This idea of like it's a reminder of whether you see Jesus as a God
just a
figure
guy or not,
or just a guy, the martyrdom was still significant, right? flailing wildly with predictions here. And if you're listening to this and you've read the book already, you could be laughing at us right now.
But hopefully you'll tune in to see how right or wrong we are.
Exactly. Or at least if you already know whether we're right or wrong, tune in to find out how we react to being right or wrong. So I guess that brings us pretty much to a close here for this episode.
Yeah.
As always, you can find all of our stuff at blahblahblahmedia.com. That's blah with BLAH, and it's 3 times, so blahblahblahmedia.com. You can find all the podcasts there, as well as links to our merch store, our Patreon, our Buy Us Coffee, our everything.
Yeah. Some of the merch is pretty cool.
Some of the merch is pretty cool.
Hats and shirts and pillows.
Some of it probably needs a refresh. You can email us, as always, at badthingshappen@gmail.com. Let us know what you think, what you like, what you don't like, what you want us to read in the future. We've got one more episode of this, and then we'll do a live wrap-up with our final thoughts. We also, maybe by the time you're listening to this, the edited YouTube video of our first attempt at live streaming a video game will be edited and available. It's not yet because I've been lazy about that. But last episode, we did a live playthrough of Postal 2, a controversial video game that, Pete did the majority of the gaming on because he had had not enjoyed the game before, and it was a lot of fun.
It was a
lot of fun.
Yeah.
So
thanks everyone.
You got anything I forget to mention?
No. Order some merch. Let us know what you think by emailing us.
Absolutely.
or leave a review. Leave a
review. Well. You can message us on Facebook. Go to our Facebook page and shoot us a message if you just want to drive by and say, hey, fuck you guys. That's fine. Or, accuse us of being, I don't know, a spurgy. I don't remember what the guy who didn't like a review or the episode on the Turner Diaries, what he called me, a spurgy faggot, maybe?
Something like that.
Anyway, that's, I've been Todd Sullivan.
I've been Peter Hammond.
And until next time,
go read a fucking book.